In today's Leeds news, 49ers Farke stance, Loanees can go again, Newsom thinks player will end up at Southampton, and Leeds in talks over Rodon. Morning everyone, it is Monday morning the 27th of May with your Leeds United news. The morning after the night before, a disappointing day at Wembley yesterday for everybody involved with Leeds, and another year in the Championship, another 46 game slog ahead of us. The fallout of this will probably start to come out over the next couple of days. There's been a few bits and pieces in the news this morning already as things start to move on what looks like it could be a pretty rapid fire summer for the club, incomings and outgoings. There will be a review of the game out a bit later on today. I'll get that sorted in the next couple of hours or so and get that up for later on. But for now, we're going to start off and stick with the news, and we'll start around the obvious question, which is the 49ers stance on Daniel Farke's future. According to Phil Hay, the 49ers have already made a decision on the future of Daniel Farke and who will be at the helm of Leeds United next season after Leeds failed to reach the Premiership this season. Hay in The Athletic said the following: sources close to the 49ers have indicated even over the past few weeks that they will be minded to stick with Farke, however the season may end. He has 3 years left on his contract. Hay went on to say Leeds owners believe the general picture is a positive one. They like his demeanour and his temperament and doesn't often talk himself into trouble in the media. They've already discussed the pre-season plans for a tour in Europe coming up, so Daniel Farke very likely to be at the helm again next season. I know there are some people who would like him not to be at the helm next season. I understand the disappointment of yesterday. I'm in the other bracket. I think he's probably the best manager we have to get us out of it next season. But we'll need a proper summer this year where players come in early, all the other noise around the club and exits is sorted early and quickly so they can focus on what they need to do, and none of the stuff that happened towards the back end of the summer window last year where players trying to sue the club and force their way out. But we'll talk about them as well in a second. But for me, I think he's done enough probably to keep himself in a job. There will need to be some changes. I am, like a lot of people, critical of how late he uses the bench. I don't believe he trusts the bench all that much, which means Leeds will need to strengthen that area as well as just the pitch. So it's a big summer planned for Leeds regardless of what division we were going to end up in. But now that we're in the Championship, we'll start to see a different probably calibre of player being linked. But I think Daniel Farke will need to drop his mantra of not bringing in Championship established players and going for a young side, and we'll need to bring in a couple of established players next season, players like Sammy Smodix, those kind of players who can add goals from other parts of the park. But we'll wait and see what happens there. But on the players that have a future away from Leeds United, and that's the Loanees or the exiles that they've been referred to in the past couple of months, the future of many of these players looks like it is now being sorted in a way that I'm sure they will all be very happy with, as will the clubs they've been on loan with. With Leeds remaining in the Championship next season, anyone who has a loan release clause in their contract for this season will now be permitted to go on loan again next season, which will remove any chance of a financial revenue from Leeds unless Leeds can offload them in the meantime. That means that Roma, Mönchengladbach and Betis, who wanted to keep Llorente, Roca and Vober, will now very likely be able to keep them on loan again next season. We've already heard talks this morning in Spain that Betis have moved quickly and are already setting up talks with Marc Roca around retaining the player for another season, having not been able to afford the £10.7 million buyout clause in his deal. Harrison is already in talks with Everton about extending his loan move there with them for another season, and don't be surprised if you see Max Vober pop up at Mönchengladbach again next season, although with the season that he had, there could be other clubs interested, which might help Leeds a little bit. The ones to keep an eye on are the likes of Rasmus Christensen and Brendan Aronson, who had poor enough loan moves last season, and they will need to find a club to take 100% of their wages if they are to force a loan move away. Otherwise they will come back to Leeds and likely be sold in this next window, which opens up at the start of June. There's not a whole lot of time to wait for this really. Outside of these, expect anyone who has been on loan this season with a loan release clause to go back on loan, probably to the same clubs they've been on loan at this season. We'll talk about Loan Watch next year and whether we want to cover them again in a second season or not. Probably not. The likes of Sam Greenwood will have a future of uncertainty ahead of him, a likely sale there as well. Luke Ayling is expected to sign a deal with Middlesbrough on Monday, and you're likely to see the likes of Charlie Creswell and Joe Gelhardt probably go out on loan next season, if not be sold by the club after barely featuring in a campaign this season. Jamie Shackleton's future will also need to be sorted out with the club who's out of contract as well. So yeah, it's not a great knock-on effect of not getting up. The fact that these players can now pretty much get what they want and move off again for another summer. But I think it'll make any return for these players even harder again if they do decide to do that, which, let's be honest, the bulk of them will do. Moving on to talk about a player whose future I would have thought was at Leeds, but not everyone associated with Leeds believes the player will still be here next season. Speaking to BBC West Yorkshire after the game, former Leeds United defender John Newsom agrees with Johnny Bucket and reckons that a certain Leeds player may end up finding himself at a club like Southampton next season. Newsom expects the likes of Somerville and Nanto to go, which I think everybody does expect to happen. But he also believes Dan James could end up at Southampton. Johnny Buchan asked John Newsom that somewhere like Southampton might just pop up as a club that wants someone like Dan James, the way that they play, the style of football that they play. And Newsom agreed and said absolutely. He also went on to say players like with Joe Rodon going back to Spurs in the summer, Southampton could even look at a player like Ethan Ampadu to come in and strengthen their defence if they need it. Although I'm not sure after the last couple of performances from Ethan at centre back that's going to be a decision to defensive lapses, one against Norwich, which Leeds got away with, and one against Southampton, which we didn't get away with from Ampadu. You want to get him back in midfield, which is his best position, and bring in centre backs, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there. And then moving on to the final story of today, and this one relates to the future of Joe Rodon. According to Team Talk, Leeds have already opened talks with Tottenham and the player around extending his deal and keeping him at Leeds United next season on a permanent deal. Rodon is believed to be pretty happy at Leeds, but after playoff defeat and at an impressive season by Rodon, you may see other clubs come out of the woodwork, especially promoted clubs who went up ahead of Leeds United, given how well Rodon played this season. Rodon himself has said he would like to stay at Leeds. Spurs have confirmed that the player will leave this year in their retained list. But speaking to the Mail, Rodon said the following: "It would be nice to have the stability and know where I am next season. I've always strived to get to the elite level and hopefully I can get back there with Leeds, but you never know. I don't want to look too far into the future, although I do love it here and Leeds feels very much like a second home to me now." It's a big one that's going to be needed to be done. I think if Leeds can keep any players they've had on loan this season, Joe Rodon is probably the one you want to make. He's been very defensively strong. You're looking for a partnership next season of him and Pascal Stroke side by side again, which were very good when they did play together for Leeds early parts of last season, season just gone. And Leeds will need to bring in more defensive reinforcements there. If Creswell does go out on loan, Liam Cooper's leaving, Luke Ayling is leaving, you want Ethan Ampadu back in midfield. Leeds will need to bring in a minimum of 2 centre-backs in the summer if they want to add depth to that area of the park, as well as the full-back areas with Conor Roberts going out on loan, and the future of Junior Firpo not really known just yet. So yeah, that back line's going to look very different next year. The future of Villa and Meslier in goal as well is going to be a question mark as well. But there's going to be a lot of decisions need to be made there, and we have to wait and see what happens in the summer, folks. That is going to be it for me today. Thanks as always for supporting the channel. It's going to be a tough couple of days. We're all feeling a bit down. We're all feeling this, but we'll dust ourselves off. We'll go again. We've been here before. We'll dust ourselves off and we'll go again next season on what I think will be a much more positive campaign for Leeds. But a busy summer ahead, and we'll try and keep you up to date with everything we can as long as we're here. And just a quick shout out to people like Rich and Jerry yesterday who got to speak in the Camden in Dublin. Had a fantastic day there yesterday. It really was a shame we didn't get the result, because a fantastic crowd in the Camden. Like you said, people, if you haven't been there for a game, you definitely should. And going forward, I think next season I'll be spending an awful lot more time there when I'm not over in Leeds. So massive thanks to everyone involved there and putting on a cracking day yesterday as well. But unfortunately not the result we wanted. I'll be back tomorrow for more Leeds news, and I'll see you for match review later on tonight. See you then. Bye.